Okay, let's get it. Black girl magic dripping. Yeah, she's on a mission. Keeping our culture lifted. Now you can watch and listen. To Tammi Mac. Tammi Mac. Oh, what show is that? It's the Tammi Mac Show on Fox Soul.
Tammi Mac, hey, Tammi Mac, yeah. Ooh, that Tammi Mac. Tammi Mac, hey, so you know this Tammi Mac, hey, Tammi Mac.
Welcome to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. I am Tammi Mac. Hello, everyone. I want to do a quick mental check-in with you. You good? Are you good? Okay. I wish I had that like Jada Pinkett Smith voice so that I could like just bring relaxation upon you immediately upon the sound of my voice. But I'm a little hardcore, you know what I'm saying? I go hard in the paint. So relaxation is not what you'll get from me. But education, oh, I got that, baby. As the world begins to reopen and we move towards a post-pandemic world, we have a lot of recovery left. We have to heal from living in a year of isolation, as well as the ever-present threat of sickness. And because we have been so isolated, many of us have to learn how to communicate again, believe it or not. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and the business of being Black tonight is communication and healing. Please welcome Emmy Award-winning journalist, author, and historian, Janice Adams. Hi, Janice.
Hey, Tammi. Great to be here.
It's so great to have you on this show. I feel so honored. So thank you for giving me your time tonight. Author and director Monica L. is here. Hi, Monica.
Hi, Tammi. How are you?
Good. And the president of Bailey Strategic Innovation Group, Eric M. Bailey, is here. I want to start off the show with one question that begs to be answered, and that is why? Why should Black people care about mental health and the way we communicate post-pandemic? Janice, looks like you're ready to go.
Oh my goodness, it is survival. It is a whole new world out here. We don't know what it's going to be. It can be an amazing adventure if we can accept that. And frankly, I'm into the mindset of saying there is no new normal. I don't think it's a whole new thing that we're going to have to define for ourselves. But with what's going on in Florida and in Arizona and in these crazy places, we need a whole lot of communication as well.
I like how you said there is no new normal. Let's ponder for a minute about that. What if we stopped making things normal and just left them as they were so that we would make room for the changes that happen throughout life? I think things were normal, and then we started on this new normal thing. And I really think perhaps we should just get rid of the word normal altogether. It's a bit offensive if you think about it, and you think about the world that we live in today and how different it is from a traditional America that we were once accustomed to. I want to go back to the question, though. I don't want to get off track too hard here, Eric, but when y'all spark me, I get to going. Eric, why should Black people care about mental health and communicating?
We don't often think about how much mental health matters to our everyday. We don't like to talk about mental health or even mental illness. When you think about, we've been under a lot of anxiety, a lot of pressure, a lot of stress over the last 15 months, specifically over the last 10, 12 months. This wears on us. And if we don't talk about it, what happens is it starts to build up this pressure. And when that pressure releases, we usually can't control when it releases. And so if we're having a conversation with a friend or a spouse or a coworker or with a stranger, that pressure may vent out and we may show up differently than we normally would. We may yell or get frustrated or angry in a situation or completely shut down or break down. And so understanding our own mental well-being is critical to our ability to communicate. And if you let me talk about it later, we'll talk about the brain science of this. It's really interesting when you start to think about the physiology of the brain and how our communication can really shape the way in which we engage with each other.
I can't wait to educate our viewers on the brain science of this. But Eric, I have to put a disclaimer. You know about the brain science, and that's your expertise. We don't. So when we get to talking about it, make sure you keep it like a 3-year-old, okay? I'm just keeping it real because I need to be able to follow you, my brother.
Yes, ma'am.
Monica, why? Why should Black people care about their mental health and communicating?
That's a great question. We should have always cared about our mental health and let the
Ooh,
stigma go.
ooh.
So even before this pandemic, I mean, it's so important and it's not a taboo. It's not a non-Black thing. Mental health is a part of your physical and, emotional health. Is all tied together. So when we are able to embrace who we are, the traumas that we've been through, and be able to move forth with work and help, then we will be better as a community.
Yeah, you said we should have always cared
Absolutely.
about it. So when you say we should have always cared about it, do you think that this is a space that Black people did not pay attention to or cared about?
I,
I want to say pre-pandemic, but I'm really meaning pre pandemic. Have we ever cared about it?
Oh,
I think I think a small percentage of us. Obviously, I can't speak for everyone, but without the taboo attached to it. If you say mental health, people don't look at it the same as if you have a physical health issue. And I think it's all tied together, if not more important than physical health, because that's how you're able to communicate if you are, and to communicate effectively in your relationships and have healthy relationships and develop in a natural pace. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Janice, I see you. I see you itching in your seat.
yeah, I am. I think we've thought about it, but we think about it in different ways. We have thought about it sometimes from a spiritual standpoint, and and in all of these things, if we don't talk about it from the standpoint of what we have been through since 1619, we're kind of missing the point on our mental health, because what we were called upon to do is extraordinary. So in a way, the normal conversations about mental health, they they do and they don't apply. They apply because we are human beings like everybody else, but they don't apply because the way that everybody needed to take care of themselves, to tend themselves, is something that was literally legislated you cannot do.
Ooh. So when
So
you say what we were called upon to do was so strenuous, what are you referring to when you say when we were called upon?
I just mean as people throughout the diaspora, whether years ago when the Atlanta child murders happened. I mean, so that's a long time ago, but it happened. And I was reporting it and talking about it and everything else. And then I was in, I have a train going by, sorry about that, but I was in an airport, and somehow something triggered something in me in Atlanta, and it never dawned on me before that I'd never thought about the impact on people of African descent, that one day you're walking down the street and all of a sudden so and so is missing. So and so went to the store, never came back. So and so just went to a neighbor's house, never came back, kidnapped, erased off the face. And now later on, they find out what happened. That kind of vulnerability of an entire continent to slave traders, kidnapping, and all of that is something there is no way to get over. So you have to create other ways of being just for your mental wherewithal. And I think, given all of that, we are genius.
I would have to agree with that.
Absolutely. Yes.
I think you cannot take for granted our road from then to now. Eric, I want to get you in here.
Yeah, I think one of the things that shows up in the world in which I live in is this idea that keeps persisting in my head, that's been taught to me since I was a kid, is only the strong survive. And so what do you do if you're having struggles with depression, or you're having struggles with ADHD or any of this thing? You got to be strong. You got to be strong. And if you acknowledge that you have mental illness or any kind of mental struggles, that's a sign of weakness. So push it down and cope and learn how to deal. And I think that's what we've learned how to do, is we've learned how to deal. And when you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right, you got to survive first. And only after you got that kind of basic level survival can you start moving up that hierarchy, that pyramid, and start to look at things like enlightenment and mental well-being and those sorts of things. And I think that what we do a lot is we're kind of still in this idea that we've got to be strong, especially Black men, like, don't cry, be strong, work it out on your own, figure it out. And I think that what we really have the opportunity to do is kind of destigmatize that and discuss things with each other and talk about, hey, I'm having a hard time with this. It's been difficult with my kids at home and me at home working. It's hard. How has it been for you? And just not saying there's anything wrong with one way or the other, but just talking about what is. And that's how we can slowly start to repair that.
Yeah. I like that. Are we all just coping?
Yes. we are coping. I mean, you figure that when you feel some kind of pain or trauma and you need to continue walking forward, you limp, right? You limp, and that's a coping mechanism.
Oh, that's good. I like that. I like that comparison. I got it right away. Yes.
That's
when
it.
you hurt your leg, you still walk, but there's a slight limp because you're coping with what it is. And sometimes like when my stomach has been hurting since I was a child, and I just kind of cope with it now.
Right. You learn
and
how
the
to
limp is a compensation, it sounds like.
It is, because if your goal is to keep moving forward, you got to do whatever you got to do to reach that goal, and you keep moving forward. And so you think about this with people who are suffering from depression but still need to go to work. Well, they still go to work, but they're the less talkative, and they just kind of get through their days. Those are coping mechanisms. Or if you're confused about all of the information and misinformation about masks and vaccines, and right, you have to cope with that. And how do we cope? Well, we keep going through our days in whichever ways we can, and we pay attention to what we can, and we ignore what we can, and we keep moving forward. And what we have to do is get to a place where we're talking, or we're talking with each other. We're trying to understand each other and be understood. And
that's why communication is so important to our mental health. We're going to take a quick break and come right back on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Tonight, the business of being Black is communicating post-pandemic. Please welcome Emmy Award-winning journalist, author, and historian, Janice Adams, author and director, Monica L., and the president of Bailey Strategic Innovation Group, Eric M. Bailey. I want to go to our chat room because our soulmates are speaking to y'all. Siobhan says, I think everyone should care about mental health. That's in reference to my first question. Why should Black people care? Siobhan, you're absolutely right. Everyone should care about mental health. But this show focuses specifically on the business of being Black. And we talk Black, and we think Black, and we make sure that we have solutions for the Black community. So that's what this is about. But thank you for being here, Siobhan. Joy says, I'm hiding my head in shame, Janice. Florida is acting up. So she's referring to you dissing Florida real quick, giving them a quick diss shout out.
And the governor.
Incog says, the pandemic has brought mental health issues to the surface. Oh. People can't deal with the isolation. People are on the edge and are losing it. They're being forced to sit still and face the truth. And Siobhan didn't want to just talk about bad things. She had a little something good to say. Not that that was bad, Siobhan. I understand. That was not a bad question. So I take that back. But Siobhan also said, Eric is cute. Ooh.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Siobhan.
Therese, our soulmate, says neuroplasticity. Our brains are truly amazing. We can relearn to do things and believe in things differently at any age. Oh my God, I did not know that. I did not know that. Look at the soulmates teaching us, sister. We're going to come to the brainiologist in just a second. But Monica, I want to get you in here. Poetry.
Yes.
How did poetry help you heal from past relationships?
Well, that's a great question. So yes, my first self-published book is called Still a Lady, Love, Light, and the Global Pandemic. And so from that, I actually, it was therapeutical. So I wrote about experiences I had, but I wrote it, in the form of a poem or prose. And it was just more of an outlet. It was something that started as journal writing. And then I tried to venture into songwriting. And so I just gave my own self the green light and did self-publishing during the pandemic. So I released my book actually last August, and it's been very successful. So I think it's great for everyone to do. And a part of the poems are actually things you can reflect upon as a woman of color, dealing with the pandemic. And then also, as a sections where you can write about your own experiences. And a lot of people have found that to be beneficial.
Oh yeah. I have a girlfriend who she did a whole like a film sort of from her journal entry, and it ended up being entered into the Pan-African Film Festival and acknowledged at the Pan-African Film Festival. So shouts out to Tiffany Snow for taking her journal entry, turning it into a piece of artwork, and that artwork being acknowledged on a large level like that. I do believe that a lot of people have gotten through this pandemic through journal writing and poetry and prose and movies, for crying out loud. I'm looking at them right now.
Yes. I totally agree. And I think that, everyone has a creative side, but just letting it out and freely letting it out. I did not anticipate that I would share all of my work, but, it was definitely something that opened me up and to be vulnerable. And so that has helped me during this pandemic, and it also has helped others.
Eric, let's move to this neuroplasticity thing, because you shook your head like this, and I was like, I hope I'm pronouncing the word right. So can our brains do different things at older ages? Because, the saying is, once you reach a certain age, you're stuck. That's where you are. And, we always talk about whatever age you were the bomb, whatever age or whatever year was your best year is the year you kind of stick with the rest of your life. You live in that year. If the quarterback won All-American, he's going to tell that story to the day he dies. So is that true? Can our brains change things? What is the science?
100%. So I'm going to get a little bit into the neuroscience, but the cells in our brain, a very specific kind of animal cell called neurons. And they're special cells because they can pass electricity, right? And we have neurons in our stomach, some neurons in our brains. And where two neurons touch, it's called a synapse. I'm not going to go too much deeper in the terminology, but the more electricity that passes between a set of neurons, the stronger that connection gets. And so, like, if you think about, if you ask me to say, go ahead, Ms. Tammi, go ahead and sign your name. You pick up a pen with your right hand, I'm guessing.
Okay.
And you sign your name. Well, you can sign your name with your left hand, but you just choose your right hand, right? Because all the neurons and synapses responsible for that motor function are just so well practiced. The synapses are so strong. But if you were to practice signing your name with your left hand over and over and over for a period of a week, 2 weeks, a month, you'd actually get really good at it, right? And so you can actually, look at that. So I'll challenge you.
I don't know how that looks.
You have me back next month.
That's the left hand.
You have me back next month. You have me come back next month. You practice every day for a month, and we'll see that get better, because those neural connections will actually get stronger with your non-dominant hand, because your brain can change. The more you do something, the better able you are to do it. And so it's kind of like a muscle. People say your brain's a muscle. It's not actually a muscle, but it behaves like it if you exercise it in a certain way. that will actually help you get better at certain things. So even talking about ourselves or journaling. I'm terrible at journaling. Well, just go do it and you'll get better at it. Or I'm terrible at meditating. I lose my focus. Well, just do it and you'll get better at it.
Well, okay, so can you get better at being consistent? Because those things require consistency, and that's where people fall short. I'll practice this for the next 2 days, but I'm probably not going to give you a month, Eric.
Right. Well, because here's why. It's because we're looking for the first barrier to stop. Right. And we don't really want to change. And so what happens is the first barrier is, oh, I missed a day, so I failed. This is why people give up on their New Year's resolutions. I missed a day, so I failed, and so I'm done. What you got to do is say, yes, I missed a day, so I'm going to start again right now. And you need to start over. Like if you missed 3 days, okay, I missed 3 days, acknowledge that miss and say, okay, I'm back on. And think about that. Yep.
When we put this in the perspective of mental health and this pandemic and being able to communicate, we're talking about how people have had to live differently, and people have had to, I guess, connect those neural cells that you're talking about in a completely different manner. You know, you can't touch anybody anymore. You can't, I don't know, you got to wear a mask all the time now, you know, like that, I think, has driven people crazier than anything else during this pandemic. And so have we learned now how to live with the masks?
Many of us have. Right. Yeah. But even just going to ask you, Ms. Tammi, when you signed it with your left hand, it was uncomfortable, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing. When we start operating outside of our natural pathways, it's really uncomfortable. Our bodies don't like it. And so when things change, all of a sudden we can't go to the grocery store, or our kids can't go to school, or we have to wear these masks, and all these things are different. It's very uncomfortable. And so if we don't have a method for dealing with that discomfort, or even putting words to that discomfort, it just bottles up. And that's what I think we have this opportunity to do, is recognize that these things are happening to us. We are experiencing these uncomfortable feelings, and we're all experiencing it. Right?
Yeah. Janice, I want to ask you, do you believe that Black people are kind of expected to hold in their emotions?
I think that has been something that we were forced to do. Don't forget, you're in the kind of horrific situations that we've been put into, and you can't have a bad day. Mothers were giving birth literally, and I'm not using it as a metaphor, literally giving birth in fields and then being lashed within a day or so into being back out in that field. The total lack of regard for you as a human being is what we're really talking about. That doesn't mean you think of yourselves that way, but in that environment. So, that's why I say I think we are absolutely genius. Now, we do have the opportunity and the need. We've always had the need to take care of ourselves. We have now the opportunity. And that is what we have to allow ourselves and give ourselves permission to do, because this society is not giving us permission to be human. We're back to that madness all over again.
Right. What do you mean by that? Because that was a very interesting point.
Well, I speak as the historian, but I'm also a journalist.
Yes.
And I'm seeing something as current as the Derek Chauvin trial. And you listen to the kind of language that was used to express the idea that there was something superhuman about George Floyd, not in a good way, the kind that was so threatening. Well, that is not new. There was a disease called drapetomania or drapetomania that was created in the 1800s. And it was the disease of wanting to run away from the plantation. I call that common sense. But they actually created this disease. And the only cure for the disease was whipping someone and putting them into torture. We're talking about a society that is not healthy, and then imposed on us in extraordinary ways. So
wow.
That is what I'm talking about. And we've ingested so much of that garbage from this society. That, throwing off the toxins of it isn't easy either.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that,
We're
and
going to
that
take a
just
quick
goes
break.
back to the mental health, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is the mental health and the permission that we owe ourselves to
Right.
take care of ourselves.
The permission that we owe ourselves. Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break. I got permission to go to commercial, and we'll come right back on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul, where tonight the business of being Black is communicating and mental health post pandemic. Are we in a post pandemic, or are we kind of like pre-post? we pre-post pandemic. In Incog, our soulmate says, I feel like I'm back in my high school biology class, neurons, synapses, signaling, etc. And then Therese says, Brother Eric, speaking facts, neuroplasticity is saving my life as we sit here and speak. If you make me say that word one more time, Janice, you were talking about George Floyd and how during that trial, the defense tried very much to paint him as a monster, as a superhuman. And Eric, you wanted to speak on that.
Absolutely. There's research from the American Psychological Association that talked about how they did 7 studies, and basically they would show a series of study participants 2 headshots. So just like from here up, right, just their headshot of a Black man and a white man. And they got these headshots from the NFL. So they got exactly this, they knew the exact height, weight, size, and everything of these people. In fact, in many of the cases, and they got same build as well, right? And what they would ask people is estimate their height, estimate their weight, estimate the level of threat, estimate how formidable they would be in an altercation. And this is the hardest one, estimate the justification in police use of force. And in every one of the studies, the Black man was perceived as taller, heavier, stronger, more of a threat, and would have been more justified in the use of force by police.
Yeah,
and
I don't think, tell them we don't need a study for that.
Well, but it's interesting, Ms. Tammi, because people, they don't want to acknowledge that there's this idea that Black men are scary or dangerous.
Yeah.
Right. I've been doing this study, kind of in unofficial study for the last 6 months, where I ask every group that I speak with. I've done about 10,000 folks now, and I ask them, what is the most common one-word stereotype about Black males? Not what's your stereotype. What do you think is the most common one-word stereotype? And the top 3 answers I get are criminal, thug, athlete. That's it. Well, everyone agrees.
And then I guess we'd have to add a 4th one now, huh? Rapper?
Yep. Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's sad because you, my friend, are neither of those, right?
Right. And I'm not good at basketball.
Monica, I got to get you in here.
Yes. I mean, I just feel that, the stereotypes, they have been forever, but we need to redefine what's important to us. We talked about mental health. We talked about open dialogue. So we can create that ourselves. It doesn't have to be in a traditional sense. It could be a sense of community, just coming together. And to me, I really don't care about how others defined us or how they see us. It's how we see ourselves. And a lot of times as Black women, we got that superwoman cape on, and we can just take that and throw that in the trash because, again, like you say, all the hard work, what does that do internally to you? And how are you perceived in that way? Because like you said, we can't be angry. We can't be this. We can't be that. But what can we be? And a lot of us are mothers, and we're, caring for others. And like you say, in this pandemic, it has been very challenging for a lot of us not to be able to actually go outside and you feel like, oh my God, I might catch something, or, can you go to your grocery store and even purchase toilet paper? It's just so much trauma, and it's learned behavior. So it definitely is good to have this dialogue.
I want to push back just a little bit on something you said here, Monica. So help me. You said you really don't care about what others think. It's about what you think of yourself. And I agree with that to a certain extent. but I want to share a story with you. One of my best friends is white, and she said to me long before George Floyd, 'cause we've been friends a long time, but she said to me, well, can't you just know that you're not less than? Can't you just know for yourself that you're valued and that you're worthy? Like, do white people have to acknowledge it? And to her I said, well, yeah. But the problem with that is that I do know, but I have to live in this world. And so just because I know, it doesn't mean that the person that's about to sell me a house knows my worth. It doesn't mean that the person that's about to get me a loan knows my worth. And I'm saying my worth from a real sense, like the credit score is intact, the income's intact, the assets are intact, everything is there, and I can be literally worth it and still get turned down. My business could have been around for 2 or 3 years, viable, and I could still get turned down for a loan. So when we talk about how we should believe ourselves that we're valued and that we're worthy, and we should feel that way ourselves, we do. But the problem is the fact that we aren't plays out in a real way.
Right. I agree.
I'd like to jump in just really quickly, Janice, before you go. I love that idea, what you said, Monica. What I think about with this idea of me being a 30-something Black male, right? If I'm not wearing my suit, I'm wearing a hoodie, people will see me different. And we tell our kids, you only get one chance to make a first impression. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. But if I'm going into a job interview wearing my skin, and the perception is that I'm a thug or a criminal or an athlete, I don't, before he can even do anything, they've already got their first impression of me. And so I've got to work extra hard.
And those things alone create mental issues for us. Janice, go ahead.
Well, the stress itself. I mean, it's not how we think of ourselves. It's the policy that is made around what other people think.
It's the policy.
That's what it is. It has nothing to do. And I have a story that I was going to share with you very quickly. When you talk about your credit score, this, that, and the other. Years when I was on the campus of my graduate alma mater before I went. And literally, I was walking down the campus, Oakland, California, and this woman runs up behind me and says, "Would you like to go to Mills College?" And I say, "Who is this woman?" And, she just sees me on campus. And I think about it. I'm going, it's 2 years after Dr. King's assassination. I'm thinking and I'm saying, yeah, I think I would. I'm going to go. Fast forward, I am finding from other Black students, nobody wants to talk to me. And I have no idea why the other Black students on campus, I'm the first graduate student, but I have no idea why. Finally, one of the girls breaks rank and she says, "You're not so bad." And she tells me that this dean who invited me, picked me out of the crowd and said, "Would you like to come here?" has been using me as the whipping post against which she is tethering all the other Black girls. Why don't you act like her? Why don't you dress like her? Whatever. So I go to that dean's office and I say, "Why did you bring me here if it was to treat me so badly?" She says, "I knew you were the one." I said, "The one what?" She said, "I had never before seen a Black girl in white kid gloves. And so I knew you were the one." And I tell that story to go to the point, we never know what the qualifications are that they have in mind that we have to be. We have no idea. It has nothing to do with credit score. It has nothing to do with your income. Your bank account. It has nothing to do with your capabilities. It has nothing to do with your resume. Anytime the hoop that I had to jump through and didn't even know was that I had on white kid gloves. Come on.
Woo!
Yeah, that
We
was a lot.
don't know. That's deep. We
Yeah,
don't know. We don't
very
know.
Don't
deep.
know.
We have no
Because there's no
idea.
fix, because there are no qualifications except how to keep us out. There, there is no qualification. The fact that we have come in, the fact that we have created this world for ourselves, the fact that we not only have Kamala Harris, but we have Stacey Abrams, we have Michelle Obama, we have Tammy Mack, we have
Yeah.
Monica L. That fact alone is
Yeah,
defying
yeah. There
qualifications.
there are no qualifications. You're absolutely right. There, you
It
know,
is.
you're the one. I just know you are the one. And could you be the one to get the rest of them in line?
Yes.
Sometimes that happens, right? But it all goes back to why we should care about our mental health, because there are these seeds that are constantly planted inside of us, that sends our brain in directions that even we don't understand why we feel the way we feel. Monica, did you want to comment? Go ahead.
I mean, that was a lot. So, I mean, thank you for sharing your story. I also went to a predominantly white institution, and, I was asked the same thing: do I play basketball because of my height? And it's like, no, not at all, But like you said, why were you chosen? And then what happens to those who weren't chosen, who have the same qualifications? How do you deal with that? How do you help our society and our young men? How do you help our young women? And so let them know that you are better than enough. And, how do you move forth? Because a lot of times that's when the depression can set in, when you've done all you needed to do and you still don't get that job or that position or whatever you're aspiring to.
May
Yeah,
I
that
just
is
say
that.
that I'm sorry, Tammy.
Go ahead.
May I just say I wasn't chosen. My wardrobe was chosen. And the minute you get confused, that's when we really start struggling and having these problems.
Right.
Once again, you cannot take what was said as what was meant. There are no qualifications. There are no rules except the doctrine of white supremacy.
We're going to take a
That's the
quick
rule.
break and come right back on the Tammy Mack Late Show on Fox Soul. Welcome back to the Tammy Mack Late Show on Fox Soul. What a conversation we are having tonight about communication and mental health. And yeah, we've been swerving because it all has to do with our mental health. Our history has to do with our mental health. George Floyd has to do with our mental health. I mean, it all, applying for a job in this world has to do with our mental health as Black people. So we've definitely covered the gamut here tonight. Let's go to the chat room. All Praises says, yes, it's called self-esteem. She's giving you all praises, Monica, for that one. Keeping Nettie says the phrase tall, dark, and handsome may have something to do with it. I'm not sure. I guess with the fear of Black men, but I'm not sure. I always wondered about the phrase tall, dark, and handsome
It
because
didn't mean black.
it's often referenced for white men, not because
It's
Black men
always reference for white men.
I'm like, do they want a Black man, tall, dark, and handsome? I'm like, how can dark mean something good and positive for white men, but then Black men are inherently dark, and nobody wants to put them in a tall, dark, and handsome category. I'm sorry for that, Eric. I'm so sorry, but at least Siobhan thought you were cute today. Trauma is real. We have to find ways to overcome the traumas, but our lives are full of it daily just because of our skin. It's hard, but very possible. I like that. I like that hopeful outlook. It's hard, but it's very possible. All Praises says, yes, I wasn't chosen. My wardrobe was chosen. She's Janice, that was deep. Dressing for the cause is a real thing. Let's talk about the possibilities. What are the possibilities of us moving forward and perhaps assisting in better mental health? when it comes to Black people? I'll give this one to you, Monica.
Well, I think definitely it's looking at non-traditional ways to have therapy or to come together, however you decide to do it. It doesn't have to be the traditional sense of someone going to see a psychiatrist or a psychologist. And I think it's just having a conversation, because you're right, it's a lot of trauma that we've dealt with. No one wants to see someone that looks like you being murdered on TV. You know, that is daily trauma, to make sure that we actually leave our house and come back. You know, we don't take those things for granted like other races do. So I think that it's, you know, it's just however we want to define it, but it's also having that open dialogue and letting people know it's okay. Like Eric said, you know, it's okay for a man to cry. It's okay to have a sense of community where they are supported. And then we just need to come together stronger as a race and support each other, because we all go outside and deal with a lot of trauma, and we got a lot of childhood trauma. So, you know, that's what we need to work on so we can move forth and be healthy.
I want to ask you, when you say use non-traditional ways outside of, you know, traditional therapy, can you suggest one way? I know you used journaling. I guess that
Yes.
would be one, right?
Yes, definitely. I think that, you know, another thing I enjoy is I enjoy walking on the beach, you know, just being outside, movement, just, you know, being open to speaking to someone, you know, in a non-judgment type of environment. I think also, you know, again, we all can come together. It doesn't have to, you can start a Facebook group where you're just sharing your concerns. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the traditional sense, but I am for a traditional therapy as well. I've been in therapy, and I think it was very beneficial to be able to even to produce this product and to be open with my work. So it's however you can get the help that you need, as long as it's someone who is positive and providing that light to you.
Yeah. Joy Swanson says, is it really? I thought tall, dark, and handsome was for Black men. You thought wrong, my sister. You thought wrong. Janice, how do we get over this hump?
You know, for myself, I've been thinking very carefully since you raised this issue of communications. I'll say it this way. I've been thinking very carefully about the language we use for ourselves and each other. You know, one of our viewers said the issue of walking around in the skin, and I just want to say this. One of the ways that I got beyond that is to say, we always hear, well, you know, they hate us because they're Black. And I have begun to say, no, they hate you because they're hateful. And to put the onus in the right place. There's nothing to be hated about being Black. If your head is on straight, you're not going to hate somebody because of a birth trait like the color of their skin. That's a person whose head isn't on straight, but I don't have to take it in. I know my society wants to deal with this, but I don't have to take it in. So I've been working with myself and a lot on language. I don't refer to slaves anymore. I refer to people who were enslaved. I don't refer to, because that's what it was. I don't say that we were, you know, born a slave. I say, no, something was done. We were enslaved at birth. And I think that when we start, you know, that to me is non-traditional therapy.
Yeah.
How we think about ourselves and how
Yeah.
we throw off the yoke.
That is definitely going to take some coaching from Eric, because that, my sister, is definitely retraining our brains to say they hate us because we're hateful, because they're hateful. Not they hate us because we're Black. They hate us because they're hateful. We weren't slaves. We were enslaved. We were human beings. We were productive people. In some cases, we were kings. We were queens. And so we were enslaved. I mean, these are good things and good ways to think about changing our brain form. Wouldn't you say, Eric?
Absolutely, 100%. Our language matters more than we can possibly imagine. I mean, even one thing, you know, I always try to think about, like, what is the closest form of communication we have is with our families, our spouses, our children, our friends. And if you think about what kinds of conversations are you having in those circles, you want to find at least one person in your life that you can talk to 100% openly. If that's your spouse, great. If that's a cousin, great. If it's a friend, coworker, find somebody that you can say, hey, I'm struggling with this. I mean, we just watched the Chauvin verdict a couple of weeks ago, and you ask people, how are you feeling? And they're like, I don't know. I feel relieved. I feel not angry, right? And so like, there's so many emotions and feelings that people are feeling at any one given day. We have to find someone that we can talk about things openly and honestly and vulnerably. And Monica, you said this perfectly, without judgment, right? That person doesn't judge us. And that matters because when we can be our whole selves in conversation with somebody, we can be understood. And I want you to think about this. The one thing that we desire most in our lives is to be understood. If we're sharing some idea, we want people to understand our idea. We're angry about something, we want the person we're arguing with to understand why we're angry. Or our spouse, right? We want them to understand us. And
in the words of Oprah, we want to be seen.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's it. And if we're not seen, there's this idea that someone shared, I remember who shared it, but they said respect is like oxygen. You don't usually think about it until it's not there, and that's all you can think about. And so if you can find yourself in a situation where you are seen and you are understood fully, like for who you are, exactly who you are, your flaws and your benefits, all these, you can be healed. And that's the thing. We gotta be that for each other. We gotta find people, give them what they need.
We're gonna take a quick break, and then we're gonna come back and find out about these guests that I have that have been so powerful tonight on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul, where tonight the business of being Black is communicating and your mental health post-pandemic. But I've dubbed it pre-post pandemic because we are not out of the woods yet. I can tell you that. Eric, the cure for stupidity. Should I be offended?
No, absolutely not. Because think about your life. You go through every day.
First of all, this is your book. I want to make sure everybody knows. Your book is The Cure for Stupidity.
Using brain science to explain irrational behavior. So you think about, there are people in your life, in your world every day that drive you nuts. And what happens is, what we want to do is we want to put that judgment of stupid on them. Like, how could you possibly not know that thing, right? And so what we're doing is, we're not saying they're stupid, but we're thinking it a lot. And so what my book does, it goes through what I call my principles of human understanding. Essentially, there are 22 brain science and psychology principles that help us understand why we do the things we do, or why they do the things they do. And when you understand those principles, what you end up doing is you end up humanizing them and getting to a place where you can, I get why you did that. I disagree with what you did, but I understand why you got there. And it helps. I mean, my wife and I, we're working on this every day. She's the CFO of our company. We're working on this every day. We got a podcast we're doing, but it works at work, with city councils, with we've done it with the state legislators all over the country. We've done it with offices and friends and family. And what happens is, you end up kind of letting go of that burden of frustration, and you're able to reconnect with people on a really meaningful way in your communication.
And where can we get the book, and where can we see your podcast?
Well, you can get the book on Amazon, or you can get a signed copy if you want at thecureforstupidity.com. The podcast, you can grab that on my website. So just go ahead into ericmbailey.com.
Monica, still a lady. I'm telling you, you've been quite the lady tonight.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So yes, Still a Lady is my first book. I actually have two more in the works. So Still a Lady is a collection of poetry. It's a combination of 20 years, but I have some most recent pieces where I wrote about George Floyd and just a lot of things that we've dealt with in this pandemic. It is for our sisters, but I do welcome everyone because knowledge is power, and obviously we all interact together. So I'm really excited about that book. In addition, I do have a positive affirmation journal, and it's for men and women because I think it's the power of the word. Like we talked about tonight, it's really powerful how you perceive yourself and how you perceive others. And so all books are,
where can we get those books?
they're available on Amazon, or you can also follow me on Instagram at MonicaL_poet, and I'll be more than happy to send you an autographed copy. Thank you.
Thank you. Janice, your book is Sister Days and your radio show.
Yes, thank you. I am the author of Sister Days, and really driven. It came about during the whole pandemic thing, but over the years, every time I would read, I've actually written 11 books. So most of my books are history oriented for children, for adults. And every time people will come up to me and say, but why didn't anybody tell me? And the pain that we events, because we don't know who we are. We don't know the extraordinary things we've accomplished. We don't know the cures that we've done. And so I decided that I was going to do a mother-daughter book club so that this knowledge would be ours and we could pass it on and pass it up.
And how do we get this book, Sister Days? Or
the book is available at bookstores, etc. But the book club is at janosadams.com, JANUS Adams.com.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Janice. Thank you, Monica. Joy says, I'm sending this whole segment to my family and enslaved. Let me start restructuring my vocabulary. So we've got some viewers who are taking in what you said. Thank you so much for being with me. And until tomorrow, everybody, it's a blessing to be in your box on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Bye, y'all.